Welcome to the Not So Intellectual podcast. On today's show, we have the multi-talented, the multifaceted, the multi-awesome person. They are Marlayna Sereya. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing? I'm about
Pretty
to
good, pretty
be even
good.
better in a second.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell
I
yeah.
are you, so are you a vape person or are you a more of a pre-roll person?
Okay, so I am really old school in that I love flour. And flour just does it for me in a way that like vape doesn't. I vape out of like the need for convenience. So like if
Yeah.
I'm in a semi-public kind of public area where I can't just like off and spark up a joint, can't have like my bong with me, obviously, then I'll
Mm,
vape out of consideration and for
yeah.
discreetness. But like if I'm home, I'm gonna spark up a J or I'm gonna hit a bong, whatever I'm feeling. So I'm gonna spark up this J real quick.
Go for it. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
feel like I've gotten to the point where I like how easy it is just to fucking hit a vape and not have to like worry about ashing anything. I think it's just me being lazy, even in my stoner fucking times,
I mean, that's on
honestly.
brand for a stoner to be lazy, right? I mean,
Basically.
I just I my first job that I ever had when I moved to California was at a dispensary.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things I had to do as part of my job was roll joints. So because we would do compassion joints for people,
Nice.
like if they couldn't afford to, buy weed, we have compassion joints. So it's basically just shake, you
Okay.
know, and we, would give those away, but you had to like somebody had to roll them. And this
Someone
is
had to
like
learn how to do it right, right?
But he had to roll it. And this is when weed at the time, this is literally like going on 11 years ago. So weed wasn't even legal for recreational yet. It was only medical.
Oh, damn, that's early.
So you
That's
had,
great.
so you had to have a card and like it was like a ton of paperwork and to be able to even get weed, it was like such a process.
No, I remember that. I remember having to go to like a doctor
Yep.
and say like, "Oh yeah, back problem," and now
I
I
can't
can
sleep at night and I
I
have a
can't
headache.
sleep at night. That was funny.
Yeah, so
So
I got really good at rolling joints. So, and it's easy to smoke a joint for me.
okay,
And I flower just hits better for me than vapes do.
I have to agree with you on that one. Like, I recently started getting more flour than my vapes, and that's just because of where I work now. Yeah, fucking flour does hit fucking better, honestly. If you have the time to do it, yeah, hit that fucking bong, absolutely. I've been asking everyone this, and I've been itching to ask you, have you been watching X-Men?
Oh my gosh, I really wish that I have been.
Ooh, okay.
I have not had the time to get into it. I'm really on my comfort show right now, which is Drag Race. Is
Okay.
like, yeah, I've been watching like all the drag races until like the latest season comes out, streaming, like not costing an arm and a leg. So I watched like whatever the last season was that was available, watched that. Then I watched the UK drag race.
Oh,
Then I
damn.
watched UK versus the world. And now I'm watching Canada drag race. Oh, and I watched Mexico drag race.
Ooh,
Um,
on another level?
on another level. And it's actually
Interesting.
really surprising to me. It's not, I mean, I don't want to say it's surprising, but like, and this is not to be like shady or anything,
Yeah.
but because I love all drag queens. Like I'm a big old queer and I love all of the drag queens. But I have noticed
Uh-huh.
like the Mexican, like the foreign drag queens, like the non-American drag queens, like the drag is kind of a little bit more elevated.
I believe it. I was about to ask you if that UK versus the world, like who was the other contestants from? Like, or maybe Philippines or
Yeah, they had UK versus the world. So they had girls from UK, they had girls from the States, they had a girl from Amsterdam, they had Scotland, they
oh
had
damn.
uh bitch, what are you doing? Sorry, my dog is just being she just scared herself somehow. I don't even know how she did it.
Hell yeah.
Uh yeah, they had oh my gosh. It was a variety. They had I think they had a queen from like I think from like Thailand. They had a queen from
Okay.
Thailand. There's also a Drag Race Philippines, and like those bitches go hard as fuck as well. Like
I
worth saying.
believe it.
Yeah, yeah, they go hard. But I'm watching the Canadian queens right now, and like not only are like the majority of them like really well polished and like stunning, but also it's interesting to see across cultures how they act with one another, like what the season is like. Because in the United States, like the American queens are gay, they get real catty. They get
I was
real
about to
catty.
ask.
They get real competitive, and like competitive is fine, but like bitchy and like I don't know,
It's
like shady.
nasty.
It gets
Yeah.
nasty. It gets nasty.
Yeah.
And I actually stopped watching Drag Race for a while. There was one season I watched where I was just like, if this is what it is, I'm not interested. Like, there's no amount of drag
Interesting.
that makes me interested in this like catty drama shadiness. You know, it's like already as a queer person, there's enough challenges that we face in the world. There's enough stereotypes that we face.
Yeah.
And like, we don't need to be putting out things that like feed into those negative stereotypes about us, and that like we're not doing nobody any favors, we're not doing the community any favors by exposing ourselves in this way and like putting out all of this super catty shady nastiness. Because you look at the UK queens,
Yeah.
and like they're super sweet with each other. The Canadian queens are probably the nicest queens that I've seen
Interesting.
so far. Yeah, but I mean, like Canada, right? Like, isn't that what we
I was
say?
about to say, yeah. Are they like super
Like,
nice to each other?
aren't they like
Oh,
super? Isn't that the reputation of Canadians? They're like the nicest people on the planet.
yeah.
So, and so are their drag queens. They're all really nice. And then they're just all freaking gorgeous with incredible drag. Like, it's
Do
amazing
you
the stuff they're doing.
so do you think maybe the American producers are the ones that are kind of like pushing them to like be more toxic towards each other? I always kind of thought that when it comes to like reality TV, that it's always the producers being like, yeah, fuck that bitch.
I mean, okay, so I'm gonna say I think it's multiple factors. I think one factor is the producers to an extent, yes, because here's the thing. I've done a few reality things here and there in my life,
Hmm.
and I did received like I shot a sizzle reel for a reality show because I used to work at Crunch Gym back in the day when I lived in Miami. This is like over a decade ago at this point. I worked for Crunch Gym, and a production company got hired to do a casting. They cast 6 people,
Hmm.
uh, so personal trainers and group fitness instructors that they are gonna follow throughout the gym, and like what their lives are like inside the gym and outside the gym, blah blah blah. So we did
Yeah.
like a sizzle reel, which a sizzle reel is basically like you're making a trailer to pitch the show. Um, and so they had a character who was brought in from outside. So he didn't work at the gym I worked at. He worked at a different gym.
Okay.
And he's like from Boston or whatever. And they have their archetypes, right? Of like who everybody is in the cast. So you have like the real pretty girl, you have like the butch girl, you have like the guy, the super huge big gay guy who is also like a porn star in his free time because
Yeah.
Miami. And then there was me. And so this guy, the Boston guy, he's like the super cishet white guy from the mass hole.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I didn't know this guy. I'd never met him before. We started shooting the sizzle reel, And they're like, I'd had maybe like all of 2 interactions with him that were very brief. And so we're doing my confessional, which is, a common thing that we see in reality shows is you
Right.
get the confessional where they're by themselves and they're talking about the whatever situation. And they're like, so what do you think about this guy? They is what they ask me. And I'm like, so you have to answer in a complete sentence, right? So you have to
Mm,
answer the question with the question in your sentence. So it's if the question is, what do you think about Kevin? I have to say like, so what I think about Kevin is, or like what my opinion on Kevin, or Kevin seems like I have to, it has to be like a sound bite. So they
got
coach
you.
you how they want you to express yourself in that way. And then I was like, I don't know, like he seems like, yeah, maybe kind of douchey. And then they
Mm,
were like, okay, cut. And they were like, okay, so can you say like he seems like a douchebag? And I was like, all right. So then we do the take again. I'm like, he seems like he's kind of a douchebag. And they're like, okay, no, but can you say
douchebag.
like you think he's a douchebag? And I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, so I think he might be a douchebag. And they're like, like they want me to very specifically say it
Interesting.
that way. And they're like, okay, I'm gonna give you a line, and if you can just say it. And I was like, all right. And he's like, Kevin is definitely a candidate for douchebaggery. And I was like, okay. So then I said, yeah, Kevin is definitely a candidate for douchebaggery. And they were like, perfect.
Yeah,
And I was
I
like,
can
oh,
understand that one. Interesting. Oh, I think
I
your
don't even
internet's
know it. So when you say like, could it be the producers like coaching them or like telling them to be that way? Of course. And are they going to admit that? Contractually,
no.
they can't. You
Ew.
can't say that, oh, the producer, the director,
Told you
like
to
you
say
can't,
that. Yeah.
absolutely not. You can't say
Unlimited.
none of that shit. But like,
There it is.
so is that a possibility? Sure. Now, in the past, when it comes up, like about, oh, the way they edited this or the way that blah blah blah, like they wholeheartedly deny it, and they always will.
Hmm.
They always will. So like who's to say what their practices on that show is one side of it, right? That I can offer
Yeah.
opinion in that way. The other side of it is that is it entirely possible that just the nature of social culture in the United States and the way that we as a country are competitive, the way that we are propagandized to,
Mm.
this country, and how we should be proud Americans and proud in this way and we're the best. So the way that these messages that we receive like infiltrate into every community, right? Into
True.
every community. It's the air you breathe. You're born into it, into a culture of supremacy, and cultures of supremacy create these ways
Mm.
of being. And so like I could also say that maybe it's just the culture in the United States and these people growing up in this culture, you're going to absorb toxic elements of your culture, whatever it is. And this is regardless of if you're Black, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're whatever. If you grew up in the United States of America, if you've been living here for anywhere in the past 100 year span, and even before that, you
Yeah.
know, there is a one common thread, and that is people from the United States are competitive as fuck.
Yeah. No, when you see stuff from like UK and they kind of come across like an American, they kind of always like give that type of stereotype. Like, hey, I thought you were gonna be an asshole. I thought you were gonna be more arrogant or more boisterous. That's something I think you know that one right in the fucking head, honestly.
Hmm. And so I think that, it could be a little column A, a little column B, a little column
Mm,
R, it
mm-hmm.
could be both.
Right.
It could be that the producers see, or they intentionally cast people because they're smart in everything they do.
Yeah.
intentionally cast people that they know are gonna be volatile personalities, and then be like, "Hey, so, you know, this bitch said this about you.
Yeah. And that's how you get heat. That's how you get conflict.
How do you respond to that?" Because they believe reality shows believe that what is interesting to people is conflict.
Hmm.
And if you don't have conflict, then like why watch? Like what makes it interesting if it's not conflict? People gravitate to entertainment where there's some kind of conflict. And
True.
well, that's why Jerry Springer was so successful.
Fuck yeah, I was. Yeah. You nailed
And
that one.
all of
Yeah.
those trash TV shows, why they were so successful, because they revolved around creating situations that became explosive conflicts, you know?
100%.
So, yeah, and I mean, like, and I'll even circle it in
Hmm.
to the topic that we're actually gonna talk about, which is wrestling. Why do people watch
Yeah, thank you.
wrestling? Because people love conflict. You
Absolutely.
know? And
Have
wrestling is the
Mhm.
combination of conflict. You have storyline,
Mhm.
conflict novela. It's like a novela. I like to think of it like you
Yeah, it
have this
really is.
novela style conflicts happening, storylines happening, and then you have like violence. And there's nothing more that people here in the United States love more than
Then
violence.
violence. Absolutely. No, it's global, dude. That's global.
I mean, facts though,
Have
because
you, so real quick, have you ever heard of something called Lucha Underground?
I have not.
So Lucha Underground came about, like, I want to say, like 2000, late 2000s, early 2010s, around there. During the time where I want to say women's wrestling wasn't necessarily where it is now,
Mhm.
especially in the WWE. It was much more tame. They were telling them not to pull their punches because they were looking better than the men's. Um, Lucha Underground basically took the novella type of aspect of storytelling,
Mhm.
mixed it in with fucking wrestling, and
Mm.
had intergender people. Like it would be man versus woman. It was, everyone would go after the same title. The world championship would be for both the men's and the women in the roster.
So it's like
It's,
co-ed
yeah,
or
co-ed type of
affiliated. Um,
yeah. Let me show you a
oh,
little bit of that real quick. Because I've
okay,
been
show
meaning
me.
to show you that.
That sounds exciting.
Here, share the sound.
I'm over here eating my empanada like, I can't wait.
This is perfect timing. And check this out. Okay, so a lot of the people that you're about to see are currently in the WWE and
Mm.
AEW. And the reason why is because they did crazy shit like this. And they did not pull their punches. They went for it, dude.
I'm just like when he like fully drop kicked her in the chest. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
dude.
Okay.
This is Io Sky
Get
right
it.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here,
Like, come on,
this
girl,
guy,
you more swirly
Pentagon
than that.
Dark, he was the champion.
Look like some kind of character out of Hellraiser and shit.
And here's the novella aspect I was talking about. So
Yeah, it's shot like a novela. It's kind of hilarious.
it was crazy because they even did seasons. It wasn't like a weekly show. It was a season. You'd have to wait for the next season to see what happened next. Um,
Oh,
Let me just let you
so
see
it's
a little bit
like a
more.
novela about wrestling.
It was a genius plan. I don't know. I gotta research a little bit more about that one, but it took the storytelling of and the type of way that they shot novellas and they mixed it in with wrestling, and it was a
That's
fucking made.
dope.
Yeah, dude. You can
That's
see the
dope. I'm gonna
whole
look for that
series on Tubi. You can see it on Tubi.
on Tubi. Heck yeah,
Hmm.
Tubi, come through.
Hell yeah, Tubi.
Oh yeah, Tubi. Oh, to be or not to be. Definitely to be.
Tubi. Hell yeah. I
Ew.
have I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You are a proud Puerto Rican, they them.
Yeah, that's right. All day. Hasta bay
Do
repping.
is there any cryptids or any type of monsters that are like regionally based in Puerto Rico?
Of course, you know Chupacabra.
Oh yeah.
Chupacabra is like the number one. Um, and then we have La Llorona. We have like our version of La Llorona.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. I
I
mean,
didn't know that one.
the idea of a woman that has either lost a partner or lost her children and that like kills herself or is killed tragically in some capacity that haunts a place as a maybe she's gonna take your kids, maybe she's gonna come after you, maybe if you're
Hmm,
a man she's gonna haunt you. That's like such a universal concept. That's such a classic archetype.
that's true.
uh, so we have our own kind of version of La Llorona, um which is like it wasn't until I think I moved from Puerto Rico to like maybe Florida before I learned that there was a like a Mexican is kind of like the OG or perceived as
Hmm.
like the OG Llorona. um but we also have, so we can go even further than that. And sort of it kind of is similar type of archetype. We have the Ciguapa. So the
Chihuahua.
Ciguapa is like a type of siren. So this is now the Taino indigenous folklore. So the Taino of Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, so they all believed in the Ciguapa. So she's supposed to be like a really beautiful woman, and she got like
Hmm.
real like ass length hair. Sometimes
Hmm.
she's green,
Okay.
sometimes she's green. She's like a water spirit, and she's basically, and then her feet are backwards.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so that's the one, like that's the weird scripted thing about her is that her feet are backwards. So like it's hard to follow her.
Interesting.
It makes it hard to follow her. So the thing about her is that the lore of her is that you hear a woman crying
Hmm.
and you go see who it is and you go follow it. She like lures you into the woods and then she like kills you and eats you or drowns you. Something
Hmm.
adjacent to that in some kind of a way. Now, is it possible that this folkloric character, the creation of it coincides with when colonizers were showing up? And Taino women, it is known that Taino women were warriors as much as men were. A lot of people
Oh
say
shit.
like, oh no, they had their gender roles and the women specifically did. That's nonsense. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
women had their roles just like men have their roles, but anybody is open opportunity for anybody to be a warrior. Like they were not
I
so hung up on that shit, on gender roles
yeah.
like that.
I
So,
would I would assume that an alien invasion, yeah, fuck gender roles. We're trying to survive here. Yeah.
bruh, so it is known that Taino women would lure like conquistadors and shit
Oh shit.
into the woods, into the jungle, because who knows the jungle better than they do. And
Yeah.
so like, they would lure the men into the jungle and then like it would be into a trap and it would be like a gang of women would like jump and kill these men.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so that was like totally a thing. So is it possible that, they would set traps or they would, figure out a way to do footsteps going forward and then step in their own footstep backward to create these sort of things? They were certainly smart enough to do it.
I believe it.
Why not? Did they a lot, were Taino women known for having traditionally long hair? Not necessarily, because if
Hmm.
a lot of old artwork shows them with shorter hair, so it depends on the island. Um, so, I mean, like, who's to say where that came from? But that's a really interesting cryptid that when I got
I
into
like that one.
mermaiding, I was like, what's the mermaid folklore of my people?
Hmm.
You know? And so I reached out to like an elder, and she's on Instagram, Irka Mateo. I reached out to Irka Mateo and I was like, what's our mermaid folklore? And she was like, Si guapa. And I was like, okay. And she explained it to me. And I was like, that's interesting. And then there's also there is a mermaid specifically that is like more like the traditional mermaid figure that
Hmm.
she appears a little later. Um uh I can't remember her name right now, but that's also like another, so we have our mermaid, water spirit, whatever figures on the island. And then like Puerto Ricans are Catholic as fuck.
Oh yeah, with
And when you have
Catholicism. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
and you have the integration of like the Catholicism with like the West African religions that were brought to the island via the transatlantic slave trade.
Hmm.
And so you get people who, for as Catholic as they are, they're very, very superstitious.
Hmm.
And so like the belief in demons like is definitely a thing, and like they believe in like being possessed and whatever have you. And I'm not saying that like everybody's like, this isn't me trying to like cast a broad net. It's definitely the much older generations, obviously, not so
Right.
much the younger generations anymore. Um but like even still,
That shit's ingrained, man. That shit's
it
ingrained.
really is.
Let something bump in the night. You're gonna fucking feel it.
Yeah, I mean, like the concept of like a boogeyman, like we have
Hmm.
El
Mm.
Cuco is the
Oh shit.
boogeyman, and I feel like there was even like a independent horror movie from Puerto Rico that was made called El Cuco or something like that. I have almost feel it in my bones like it happened.
Before
Um,
we run out of time, let me ask you about your burlesque because I definitely wanted to ask you that before we ran out of time. I'm sorry to cut you
I
off
don't even
there.
know how much time we're going. I was just like, I'm just
Uh,
you tell me.
it's no, we're good, man. We're good. We got like 9 minutes left, but
Oh, I see the timer up there. Okay. Cool, 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 cool.
yeah, tell me about your burlesque
Burlesque.
show.
Yes. So I got two burlesque shows coming up. I have the first one is May 24th. That's a Friday. That is Lola Boutte Presents. It's uh it's at Saints and Sinners, and it is the name of the show is like Fire Fun Fridays. I'm probably butchering that. I should actually like look at it, because give me 2 seconds to grab
For
my phone
sure.
to exact with you about it. 'Cause
No worries. I'll be able to put all this stuff on the description in the podcast. Don't worry,
cool, cool,
guys. You'll be able to
cool.
get it.
Awesome. So yeah, so the upcoming one is a birthday show. My birthday's May 23rd, so it's like, look,
Hey,
we're doing it. Okay, so it's Frisky Fridays Fire and Cabaret.
hey,
There it is. Lola Butte Presents. That's at Saints and Sinners in North Hollywood, California. And seeing is at, what is that? Sorry, I'm trying to see the flyer and there's
no,
things
you good.
blocking. The show starts at 8:45. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. And if you go on my Instagram, the link is in my bio to that.
Hell yeah. You're
And
also
then the
doing,
other thing I'm
uh-huh.
doing is the Herbal Elegance review. So you'd really love this because it's the Green Room, which is a dispensary. They have
Ooh,
a room next door that they have, it's like a event space. And so they have license and whatever, so you can consume on premises. So
Fuck yeah.
the show is happening and people are like actively like smoking with like lighting up joints and like smoking, doing edibles. You can like go buy some stuff next door, take it into the show. And then they have like water snacks, like munchies that you can
Okay.
purchase while you're watching the show. The performers are allowed to be stoned if they want to be integrated into the act, or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a burlesque. It's just like a cool chill as fuck burlesque show. So I'm doing their Pride show, which is in June, because you know I'm a big old queer.
Right
And
on.
yeah, and the date on that is June 22nd.
June
Uh
22nd.
yeah, June 22nd is the Pride show. So yeah, so those are my two burlesque events coming up. For the May 24th show, I'm doing my Puerto Rican Pride act. I have like a tribute to Puerto Rico burlesque act
Nice.
that I created. That was what the person, it's Crystal Curio. She's an amazing sword swallower sideshow artist. And she requested this act because it's like her birthday show. And then for the Pride show, I have a Lucifer act that I do. Uh,
Nice.
that it's like a very gender bendy, fun, like the fall of Lucifer act that I'm doing. Cause you know, like that was the sin of pride was, you know, right? Why not take
Mm-hmm.
that and subvert that whole thing
Hell yeah,
is
dude.
perspective. So that's
Pretty
what
dope, pretty
I'm
dope.
doing.
You're also doing the Renaissance Fair, I hear.
Yes. So I perform as Ana Caro de Mayeni Soto. She is essentially the female Shakespeare of Spain. She was actually born into slavery. She was a Moor, Morisco. Morisco
Oh
is
wow.
people who were Moors who were forcibly converted into Catholicism or killed.
Yeah.
Because you know the Inquisition.
You
Um,
believe or die.
so she was born into slavery. She was adopted by nobles. They were
Oh shit.
hereditary counselors to the court of Spain. So she grew up, she had a noble education. She could speak different languages. She spoke French, she spoke Portuguese. She could read and write. She knew philosophy, mythology, etc. She wrote poetries and plays. She started like submitting her poetry into like contests, and she started writing like short plays. So like there would be a play and then during the intermission there would be like a shorter play. So she
Oh.
would be the person that she'd write like the shorter play for the middle and do religious plays because like that was how you did it at the time. And
Mm.
eventually she got noble patronage from the Count Duke of Olivares, who was the prime minister to the King of Spain and also like the
Oh
King of
wow.
Spain's favorite person at the time. So she was paid 300 reales, which is like 3 years worth of commoner's salary.
God
She
damn.
would get paid that in a year for writing poems and plays. She was independently wealthy. She never got married and she never had kids. So it was a very rare thing that and that she was actually kind of a celebrity. She was known. She was called the 10th Muse by her peers. She had a very platonic roommate, Maria de Saya,
Uh-huh.
that she
Wink,
wrote
wink, nudge, nudge.
a book of sonnets to, and they are
Oh
titled A
wow.
Book of Sonnets to Maria de Sayas. But like they were
Hmm.
super platonic, even though they shared a living space and were seen together in public and at court. Yeah, so she's an overall badass. I get to play her, which is amazing. I get to speak in a Spanish accent, so I sound like Antonio Banderas in Puss in Boots.
Oh
Uh,
shit.
I am also like the first character in like the 65-year history of Fair that performs on stage in Spanish.
Mm.
So historically they did have a Spanish court, but they didn't perform in shows and in Spanish the way that like I perform in Spanish on stage, like on a Caro's pieces. So I'm there for the representation, you know,
Hell yeah.
which is wild because there's so many people in Southern California that are Spanish speakers, and the fact that this fair is like so massive and they only just started catering to them with the singular character of me.
Hey, but that's
Like,
the start of something big, I feel. That's
right.
the
No,
start of something that could happen even more.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I do also I do other pieces in Spanish. I do a poem by Pedro Calderón de la Barca, who was also like the Spanish Renaissance poet and playwright, like Anna was. They were in court at the same time. I performed one of his poems that's in a play. So, it's just bringing exposure to beautiful Spanish speaking poetry words. I sing songs in Spanish. They're not period,
Mm,
but like people don't know that, but they're just really beautiful songs.
nice.
Yeah, I've even sang the Puerto Rican national anthem like at
Oh,
one time.
damn.
Yeah, like we do a tea party where we like
Yeah.
entertain people while they have tea, and like we sing songs, we do sonnets, and we tell jokes and do bits from scenes. And they were like, Ana Caro, sing, class up the joint and sing a song. And I was like, all right. And that day I said, I'm going to sing a song of one of the colonies. And I sang the national
Ooh,
anthem of Puerto Rico.
hell yeah. Smart move right there.
Oh yeah,
Marlayna,
I'd be sneaking that shit in there.
I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. I'd love to have you again on the podcast. We can honestly talk about anything and make it sound awesome. Um,
I want to
yeah,
talk more about wrestling.
I know we barely touched on wrestling. You have to be on the podcast again. We're gonna talk about wrestling for sure.
Yeah.
Um, where can the people find you?
At the Marlayna Sereya on Instagram. There's also art by Marlayna if you want to follow my artwork. I paint and do stuff. And then La Sirena Boricua on Instagram is also my mermaid account, and also the Marlayna Sereya La Sirena Boricua on TikTok as well.
I'll be able to put all of that in the description for you guys to be able to check out. I want to thank Marlayna again. Until next time, see you guys. Be good to each other and be happy.
Bye.
Bye.